Hello and welcome to Property Mastermind Podcast, episode 226. Today we're talking from easy wins to hard lessons, the reality of property development. Let's jump on into episode 226. Hello, Bob. Welcome to episode 226.
Great to be here, Hilary.
That's a lot, isn't it?
226 when you think about it, yeah.
That's a lot of talking you and I have done. Yes.
Yeah, that's well done. Because
Yes.
you kicked it off, back in the very first episode.
Back in the
it was you.
Back in the 226
Before
episodes
I even
ago.
joined in.
It's a lot, and we're so consistent.
We are.
We are very consistent.
That's what wins the prize.
It is. We won a gold Stevie. We're picking. That's why we're away. We're going to New York next week to pick up the Gold Stevie Award for this podcast. I'm also picking up another one for property development. I'm actually picking up 3 for property development for Property Mastermind and the Women's Stevie. So yeah, pretty exciting. Go us.
Well done, you.
Well done, Property Mastermind. If you want to learn property development education, come learn it off us. That's what I say. Bob, what's your tip for the week? And you're going to freak out and say, I haven't got one.
No, I've got a good one.
Oh,
Guess what it is?
I don't know.
When you're booking tickets, flights, particularly if they're expensive ones for overseas, be very careful that you spell your surname correctly, or it can really cause some dramas. It's not an easy fix.
It is not an easy fix. Bob's correct there. It's very much not an easy fix. And I did that. I spelled Bob's name wrong when I booked the ticket. I put O-N, not E-N, in his last name. I gave all the numbers for everything, his passport, everything was correct, but I just spelled his name wrong. And they said to me that they wouldn't fix it, and I just had to book. They would cancel the ticket, and I could rebook it, but I'd have to pay today's rate, which was an awful lot of money.
Remember that your passport, your airline tickets, everything has to line up exactly. So one letter different could have left me stranded in the US with a ticket. Well, I was going to say a ticket home. I wouldn't have been able to get in. So
no, you would have got as far as LA. You wouldn't even have made the second
I would have made
leg.
LA, yeah, first leg.
Yes, and so that happened. We found out. I noticed it, which was lucky. I noticed it on Monday. So I thought, simple fix. You just ring them up. And I rang them up just expecting them to say, oh, yeah, no worries, just a wee typo. We sorted it out. And they said, oh, sorry, we don't, that's just our policy. We don't do that. I was like, what? And
But they said, but we can cancel your ticket and you can book a new one for an extra,
I don't even want to say what it was.
It's a big figure.
It's a very big figure. And whatever you're thinking, multiply that by 4 and you're probably about right. It was ridiculous. And I felt sick. It was terrible.
Anyway, it went on for days, but finally today we got relief. Someone
but
finally fixed it.
Do you know what I did? I did everything in my power. I did what a good property developer does. I was very persistent. I rang somebody who I know who's reasonably high up in an airline, and they looked into it for me. I rang the airline. The reason was we booked through a third party. We didn't book direct with the airline. So that was the reason. But anyway, then I rang them. They were the rudest. And then I rang travel agents, and then I talked to people, and everyone said, no, they're not going to change it. So yesterday I rang again, and I got a different person. And she said, just send me his passport and send me the ticket information, and I'll see what I can do. And I'll escalate. This is urgent because you're leaving next week. And we got an email back today that they fixed it.
So after about 7 no's from 7 people who could have helped but didn't, the 8th one did and fixed it.
But even the people that thought it wouldn't, the people were saying, oh, no, they won't fix that.
Yeah.
So I think the takeaway there is, be that of a property developer and, 2 things really. Cross your I's and dot your I's and cross your T's carefully. And I was just overloaded and tired, and that was part of it. And then the second thing is, don't give up.
No.
And that's like a site. And we can probably look at this an easy win on this one, Bob. So if I didn't give up and we got it fixed, and that's like property development. If you find a site, how can it be an easy win if you just persist with it? Have you ever done that? Persisted with a site and it came good?
Oh yeah, I've bought sites that I've chipped away at for like a year and a half. So
what do you mean by chipped away?
Well, they're a site that I wanted, but it came on, it was just too expensive. But I didn't just walk away. I kept going back, stayed in touch. We did a 29 lot subdivision. It took a year and a half to get it over the line, and just dealing with the owner, walking away, coming back, and adjusting the price. Got it to a point where it worked. They wanted a cash unconditional contract. But there was a lot of due diligence that needed to be sorted out. We wanted a lot of conditions, plus the price wasn't right. But we got there. It was a couple who had inherited the property, so they were trying to get the most for it, but they never worked for the property. So for them, it was just a windfall, And it took a while, but we didn't give up. Others people came in, tried to buy it as well, but we chipped away, stayed there, persistent, and eventually got it.
Wow, so that's definitely, wasn't it? Would that be a hard? That's not an easy win? It was persistence. Was that a long lesson? Like we're looking easy wins, hard lessons. Where does that fall, Bob?
Well, it worked out well as a subdivision, but we were talking about persistent. They were talking about persistent. Like you didn't give up. A lot of people would have given up before getting 8 knockbacks, as we did with that ticket. Thank goodness you kept going. But we were talking about persistence, and that was a persistent thing. I went on for 18 months till we got it to a price, and they accepted a range of conditions as well, which we had to have. There's some serious things that needed solving that we weren't prepared to take the risk on. And others came and went, others tried, but we were always there.
Do you think that your communication or your relationship with those people that you built up over that time impacted the moving forward on that purchase for you guys?
Well, probably, because we're actually always straight and honest with them, and they had to learn, and they had to be conditioned that eventually they would have to come our way. Nobody was going to throw a cash contract at them. First of all, for the amount of money that they originally wanted, but secondly, with all these things that have to be solved. So they eventually realised, well, yes, that is what it's really worth, not what we were hoping to get originally. And yes, until those problems are solved, we won't have a deal. So we better let them solve them, make them conditions of the contract. And so they eventually came around. We got to know them quite well. They were decent people, but we knew what we had to buy it for, and we knew that we had to de-risk it.
Did you have agents working with you as well, or were you
that was direct?
How did you do that? Did you knock on their door? Did you have phone calls? Was it emails? How did you interact?
This is probably, I'd say, 12 years ago. You know how we found it?
How?
In a newspaper. So it doesn't exist anymore. Well, I mean, the newspaper does. It was in Brisbane. It was a Courier Mail. But they used to have a property for sale section in there as well, and like commercial area where people, mostly agents, would list sites for sale. This is really before realestate.com pretty much, took off, in a big way. So there was still stuff in newspapers, and they advertised it. So it was for sale by owner.
Does that happen on realestate.com pretty similar these days?
Oh, it can. Well, I mean, you can do for sale by owner.
Yep.
On realestate.com. You normally have to buy a bit of a package. But that's dealing directly with the owner, which was important.
So, back to my question about how you dealt with the owner. Like, was it a great relationship you had with them, or how was it? Was it quite professional? Was it? I'm sort of want to get to that.
Well, it's pretty. It was very matter of fact. Like, how we do things. Like we do them now, no differently. But when we're talking to them, like, I say, well, look, I see you want X dollars for it. Can I ask you where that price came from? Like, where did you derive that? That's what I always like to do if I'm dealing particularly directly with somebody, or even through an agent. If somebody's got something I think's a bit expensive, I like to ask them where they've come up with that number, and that can be a bit of an answer, because some people will say, oh well, the one down the road on the other side of the road sold for that, but it's like 20% bigger. What's a different zoning, or whatever else that might have made it sell for that, and so they're misinformed. And so I like to know where they got their number from. Did they do a feasibility? Did their brother, who's a butcher, tell them that's what it's worth? And so my first conversation would have been around the price, and how come they derived that price? Where did they get it from? And then I say, this property of yours, you've got a lot of problems. Like they wanted to give me the problems. of dealing with. There's a whole heap of things that needed to be solved, but I always put it back. They're not my problems. They're your problem. You own the land. They're your problems. You've got to solve these problems. I'm prepared to help you solve them, but I need the time to solve them. And you can't just pass it over to me with all your problems. I'm not taking on your problems.
I've heard you say that before, and I've also heard you say when somebody wants a certain amount for a site and there are problems that need solving, the conversation with the person, it goes along the lines of the next person who comes along will encounter these exact same problems. So
you're only putting off the inevitable.
Yeah. So
slowing it down.
Yeah. So but I'm getting more along the lines of, did you become quite friendly with them or not?
Oh, we were on good terms, because I was always respectful. They simply came to realise I was right, But the market educated them eventually that I was right. So, it was friendly. It was they're probably only in their early 30s.
Oh.
The parents had died, left them, and they were nice people. So I was respected and I was good, but firm on what I wanted, what I had to get. They were inexperienced. They didn't understand. Potentially we could have been hit with $1 million sewage pumping station, which we eventually got around, but that took some work and quite a bit of investigating. That was just one issue. It was also on the river, and so there was a riparian zone along the river. How much were we going to lose? There was some really quite in-depth due diligence matters that need to be dealt with. So I was probably hoping for maybe wood duck or somebody that wasn't going to want so much, but they don't come along. Not normally on a larger project like that. Wood ducks don't normally buy 29 lot subdivisions in a really expensive suburb on the Brisbane River, which was what this was. They're normally a bit smarter if they got that sort of money. Whereas you might find a wood duck buy a duplex site that's overpriced or a 4-pack.
So that's where persistence paid off. What's the easiest win you've ever seen somebody have?
I don't know about seeing somebody have. Well, there's been some good wins. I've had the odd windfall. I've had some tough projects I've had to work hard to get through. But I got a good one once. So that you might remember the story. I heard from a friend of mine. He said, I think there's a parcel of land up at there was an elevated site with a dead end street, and he said, I think there's a site up there for sale a while ago. You should have a look. And I went up there to where he told me it was, and I couldn't see it. And then I found a sign on the ground. It was an agent sign, but it was just lying there. It was covered in mud and everything. It looked like it had fallen over. And I picked it up, and it was an LJ Hooker sign. I rang the guy up, and I said, mate, I found a sign right up there. Is it for sale? And he couldn't find the listing, even though it was an old sign of his on it. So I did a search and found out who the owner was, and I phoned them. And they lived in I was in Brisbane. They lived in Brisbane. At suburb of Mount Gravatt. So I said, look, is that property for sale? And he said, well, yeah. He said, but I haven't heard from anybody for ages. And I said, well, I don't doubt it. So I said, can I come and talk to you about it? So I went to his house where he lived at Mount Gravatt. And I said, well, tell me about the site, what do you want for it? And his father had owned it. And his father had built this old shack on it at the end of World War II when he came out of the army. And he was living in it. He used to sort of hide away in it. He didn't live there. He'd just go up and be in the shack. The son had inherited it, never done anything. And he told me what he wanted for it. And I thought, wow, that's a pretty good price, but not my job to tell you what it's worth. And I knew that I could get it rezoned for townhouses, and which I eventually did. Anyway, I got it at a very good price. I got it conditional upon getting the approval on a small deposit. And so I settled on it. And eventually I didn't even go ahead with it, even though I got finance for it. I'd made such a windfall on the land that I decided to just sell the land. So that's where I did a trade. Probably might have heard that story where I traded it for a brand new house at Raby Bay and a Rolls Royce and a few other things thrown in. It was a trade because I got it so cheap. I paid cash for it. It was just ridiculously cheap. It was about a fifth of what it was worth. And so I got all these goodies for it. So I was happy to take funny trades, yeah.
I remember you telling me about, I do remember you telling me that story. So that was just a win.
A lucky windfall.
Yeah, a lucky windfall. And I think if we bring that to, that was some time ago. So we bring it into the now, how people can have those same experiences. what would be the
With
equivalent
different
today?
dollar value.
Yeah.
So that was very lucky. Probably the luckiest thing that's ever happened to me in property. But how did it come about? Well, I was talking to my mate. We're talking about sites. He said, I thought there was one up there a while ago. I mean, I could have not done anything. I went up there. It wasn't easy I didn't know which one he was talking about. There's no fences there.
So you just went for a drive because someone had told you about it. Made your own luck.
I knew where it was, and I found a sign. I could have given up, but I found the sign. I rang the guy. Didn't have to. I took the next step. I went and searched. I found the owner. I researched the owner. I went and visited the owner. I talked to the owner. Yes, it was a windfall, but there was a lot of actions that I had to do one after the other. And so, you talked about windfalls. Good luck. That was my good one. Best one that happened to me.
So, did you have any takeaway from that you moved forward with?
Well, yeah, you just never know. You've got to follow things out to their logical conclusion, and that was that. And I did due diligence on it. Like, I had to get that rezoned. So I made quite a few inquiries. I talked to council, I talked to town planners. I mean, I did the whole thing to make sure that I had a very strong chance of getting what I needed, which was a rezoning to get those townhouses on it. I think it was 17 from memory that I got an approval for eventually. So there was a bit of work in there as well. But don't just consider something as a dry gully until you've exhausted everything.
Looked into it, followed it up. But I think just the little things by you just having those conversations, have the conversations, interact with people. That was kind of where I was asking the questions in the first lot of questions. I wanted you to go down that road because we just did a Q&A recently, and we often talk about investors. It's a big topic in our world. People ask about how do we interact with them and how we do it. And, that's something that we do a lot of. And I think so much of it, Bob, has to come with the way that you interact with people. You have to communicate with people so they like you.
Yes, I don't think it's that hard.
That's what I was kind of going to. That's why I kept saying, did you go meet them? Did you have a relationship? Because I think people don't realize that it's a relationship, and you build a relationship with that person by going and visiting them and talking with them about it.
Yeah, he spent a couple of hours on his front deck just talking about it. He's telling about his dad during the war, and he came home, told him about my dad was in the war too. It's just
rapport building.
Yeah. But it was enjoyable. He's a nice guy. It was a good combo. Even if it didn't go any further, would have had fun.
Yeah, so that's another win. What's been a hard lesson that, in your early days, what's your hardest lesson you remember?
Oh, probably when I was pretty early in the piece. I didn't really understand that. I thought property always just kept going up, and then it can have corrections. And we know that. It's sort of cyclical to a degree. But it always eventually goes up. I mean, it does. Hey, you think about the first house you ever bought, what you paid for it compared to now. Property does go up, but different places at different times for different reasons, can get tough. And I didn't realise that, and so I just thought, well, I'm onto something here, And where I was on the Gold Coast, which to a degree now, but even back in those days, had big swings. Had big swings of highs and lows. And I rode a few highs and then hit a low. And what I come to realise is that things can change, and I need to analyse the market a bit better and really get to understand market and economics and local economics and markets a lot better. And also, I was doing some subdivisions, which I still love to do, but then I realised when I'd done a subdivision and really just couldn't sell the land, that I needed to build on it because people were buying houses but weren't buying land by this point. And I thought, if I get stuck with something later, I want to be able to rent it out. So for a long time, I just built stuff so that if ever it gets tough again, I never really got tough the same as that again, that I could always rent it out. If I couldn't sell it, I could rent it out. But you can't rent out a vacant block. What do you do? Put a horse on it for $30 a week or something. So that was one of my very first early lessons, that not really understanding that things can have corrections,
And you actually mentioned micro and macro market, which if we think about that, how we teach that now, or what's in the online course, etc., is really about the due diligence, understanding not just what's being built or who's living there or what you're creating for the space, what's already there. But when you're talking about the micro and macro environment of how properties are, tracking up and down. And I've seen some people do some great research on that sort of thing. I remember a couple of mentoring students actually had a spreadsheet with that information on, and that's how they decided on their patch, really. But I suppose that's just a similar way, because you didn't know what you didn't know.
No, and I didn't know much.
No.
I had a couple of reasonable wins first up, and so that was good. But I thought it just kept going like that.
We've seen that too. People have a couple of wins, and next thing,
well, you can be lucky.
Yes. But also
luck exists.
Luck exists, but also you create your own luck.
Plan.
Yes, luck is not a business plan. No. And what about what's another? Maybe you started off not so great, turned it out. Like it did turn out to be a great win, but started out not so great.
Even I'm thinking of Darren. Darren got a site that looked like it was going to be a 4-pack, and it was okay as a 4-pack, but we ended up getting 6 on it because we were able to do 3-story townhouses. Everyone thought we could only do 2, and that was a good win for Darren. It started off as an okay project, but turned into a really good one. So sometimes you can get one that's we can get a bigger yield. Like he got 6 instead of 4, which made the land really cheap. That could be combined with a little bit of an uplift in sale values, which this one did as well. During the 2 years between finding the site and finishing the project, values went up. So that was even more. So that was a great project for him.
I just want to go back, because you just threw away a comment that a lot of people may not have got. You said it made the land really cheap. Just elaborate on that. I know what you mean, but when people when it starts off as 4 and you get 6,
so the land component, because if you think of what a townhouse costs, it's made up of many cost components. One of the big ones is the land, and probably an even bigger one is the building construction. And there's lots of other cost components like, finance and marketing and GST and consultants fees and council fees and so forth. But it's a component of the costs. It might be, and it varies from place to place, but a townhouse might be roughly 35% might be the land content in some places, So that's the land component. But if you got 6 on instead of 4, then that land component drops down to 20. I don't know, what is it, 25% or whatever it is, or 23 or 24. So that gives you that extra margin. There's different ways of looking at it. If you fit more on, and they're good design, still function and work well, then you'll make more money, because you bought a 4 site that was really a 6 site. You should have paid more for it, but you didn't.
So that's what you meant when you said that. Just you threw it away, and not everyone picks up on that, because you always look at the land component and break that down, like per
the dollar value of land per townhouse or per apartment or whatever.
Another thing that you also mentioned then, Bob, was you got more on, and that's that in most cases, and I know that you listening today, you might be reasonably experienced and understand this, but a lot of people don't get that more isn't always better. And that's why we always talk about highest and best use for the property, because in that case, getting the 6 on was better because of where it was, and people bought that type of product in that environment. But sometimes people ram more on, and if it's in an area that's not going to sell, then it's not going to sell.
Yeah, what made that work is everybody thought it was a 2-story area. We got a 3-story approval. So we ended up with 6. Well, this is Darren's project, not mine, but I helped him with it. But we ended up with 6 townhouses that were well designed, of 3 levels, instead of 4 that would have been well designed as 2 levels. Some people try and fit more on, and that's exactly what you said, when more isn't better. And that would be where some people squeeze 5 on where you should put 4, and everything ends up too small. You end up with cramped kitchens and dining rooms and living rooms, and because they're squashed up. Often the council doesn't say you can do 3 or 4 or 5 here. There'll be other things like, so many square metres of building. So you could do 5 townhouses in that same square metre building that you really should be doing 4, but they're all cramped up and the design's terrible and nobody would want to live there or buy it. Yeah, you got more on, but you just destroyed a good project.
Mm.
Or it could be a subdivision where, although you might be able to do 200 square metre lots, people mightn't be buying 200 square metre lots there. You might have to do 350 square metre lots. So getting more lots, little ones that people don't want to buy, isn't better.
And that again goes back to knowing your market, knowing your patch, and your due diligence. So, Bob, where have you ever heard of someone who's just had a shocker? They just had the worst ever development, and the wheels came off completely. Who do you know?
Well, that can salvage it. I'm thinking of somebody who not long ago got tied up with the wrong builder. That became a bit of a nightmare. Having a really good builder, and I've been blessed with nearly always having good builders. Very rarely have I had a builder I wasn't happy with. I did have two go broke on me over my development career, but I'd still got through and made a profit out of the project, although a lot less than I thought I was going to make when I started. But I know somebody, I think you know that person as well, who had a lot of bad experiences with a builder. The price was very sharp, but the builder turned out to be an absolute nightmare. The quality of the work was terrible. The quantity surveyor didn't approve some of the sign-offs for the financier to pass the money through to even pay the builder. So the builder stopped work, and it became a bit of a nightmare for them. They have worked their way through. Their profit's been kicked for it. You know, it's taken a chunk of their profit away, and it's taken a long time and a lot of concern. That's rare, but I'd be a lie to say it can't happen or it hasn't happened, because it does. Did they not do the proper due diligence on the builder? Did they not talk to a number of people that builder had built for in recent times? These are questions. Did they get too mesmerised by a really good price and not dig deep enough on the builder? Yeah, there's a lot of due diligence needs to go into builders. There's not very many bad builders, but there's a few.
And I think with this one, he wasn't just a bad builder; he was actually just a bad person.
He's an awful person.
Yeah,
terrible person,
and,
which makes it harder and harder.
Yeah.
Eventually, the developer, they had to get in the building authority, had to get a quantity surveyor involved. I think even a lawyer involved, and they got through it. It was not a pleasant experience for them, but they got there.
And I think with that person getting through was just sheer grit. They really dug deep, and they went head down, bum up, and worked really jolly hard. But they're there, and I do know that market's picked up a little bit, so that might be a bit of saving grace there.
Yeah, the market has picked up a bit, and another builders got rid of that builder. Another builder's come on, rectified the things that were wrong.
Yep.
And a little bit of market growth. I mean, the project was delayed, but fortunately during that delay, the price has gone up a bit, which is a good offset, but still
hard lesson.
Yep.
I had a similar hard lesson, and I suppose for me, I had a great builder, but for me, the COVID time where a lot of people were impacted. Some people COVID was fabulous for, like we talk about Kyle. He had a massive 7-figure win on his first development thanks to COVID slowing down all the
prices went up after it.
Yeah. So, and all his consultants, it's almost like they went to sleep. They were working from home, but they weren't working. They were working from home like people work from home. They weren't working from home. But I had something similar happen, and they just had to stop work. The builder said, we just have to stop. And he put tools down for 7 months, did nothing.
So this is because during COVID, the cost of building went up. I think it was 30% during that project of yours.
Yep.
On just the building construction, plus the time. That you could have ended up in not a good way. So that was a joint venture you were doing with a builder friend. Had you borrowed money, now you both did that with cash. Had you borrowed money, the financier wouldn't just let you pack up tools and go home for 6 months, wait till things calm down. So that was good to have been in that position, but that was tough. I mean, it was tough on him.
Oh, it was tough on him.
He couldn't get, before the shutdown, he just did everything to try and get, and no sooner line up a tradesperson, and
the wheels would come off.
The day before, they'd say, add another $10,000 to that or I won't come, and stuff like that.
And the thing is, and just like the person we were talking about before, the cost of what that money cost me, that time that I could have had that money, moving forward, because, life's precious, and, we don't know how long we're here for, and everyone wants to retire early and do all that stuff. But, there is a lot more. What we don't realize, or people sort of don't always look at the impact that something has in another area. I mean, I correct that builder and my builder, and lucky he's a friend, and we were able to support each other through that. Like, tools are going down, yep, no problem. That there's going to be.
Sorry, you even ended up paying him some extra money because of what it cost him.
Yeah, I was just going to say. Yeah.
Not only did he make no profit, he would have made a loss just purely on the construction.
Just talked about it, and that's the relationship thing coming back again, Bob. The fact that we communicated with each other, and he said, I'm going to need more money. And I was realistic. I wasn't going to be hard-nosed and say no. What, send him bankrupt? Like, it needs to be a win.
He wouldn't be bankrupt, but yeah, you're right. And like he did say, look, if you can't or you don't want to, I understand. It's not really your fault. I put a price on it. Remember he said that.
Yep.
But with the relationship and everything you jointly went through together, the hardships, you had no problem paying that extra bit of money.
Yeah, so a little bit of a hard lesson, but then, we got there in the end, and it's been worthwhile. But just, I suppose this maybe we're shining a light on property development, and things can happen. That COVID happened, and, the build prices have happened, and things can happen, and we have goods and we have bads. Like, we've just got a cracker deal right now, and I've got investors pretty much happened overnight, and the whole thing's been amazing. So you just never know when something bad, like something that's impactful, not necessarily bad, but COVID was impactful for many developers. It impacted people especially with money, at the time that things cost people with interest, and it had a big impact for a lot of people, as well as, we can flip that, and then the shiny side of that is it's all over and we're all happy now. But yeah, there has been a lot of pressure for people.
Well, there was bad during it.
Yes.
I mean, from a construction point of view, and you went through that, but then there's been good soon after it with the rapid rise in prices.
For sure.
And that helped a lot of people. You might even say didn't deserve to be helped, who'd bought bad sites that didn't stack up prior to that. And with the big increase in sale prices, were able to fight their way and do okay out of it. So what was bad in one respect ended up turning something good. You mentioned Kyle. Tell that story. That's a good one.
Well, the consultants took so long, and we've talked about Kyle many times, but it meant his profit just went up and up and up. So what was the increase from what it was projected first numbers to?
It's probably 60%.
What the heck? How good's that? So good.
Yeah. I mean, consultants were so busy in those days, and they were terrible. They just dragged out the whole process. It took him forever to get a development permit. It took him forever to get his approvals, but it was all during that time when prices are going up and up and up and up. So the biggest favour they ever did was be incredibly slow.
For him. And the great thing, and he listens to us, so hey, Kyle, I know he listens to the podcast every week. The great thing about Kyle is that he spent that time learning more and more about property development. We recently had a Q&A, and people ask questions, and he's always got his own 20 cents worth, and it'd be pretty bang on. Like, not much he doesn't know about property development.
No, he's turned into a fantastic property developer. And that was his first project. He's probably close on a few more. I know he is. But like you say, bit of good here, bit of bad there, but it plays out.
It balances out.
Yeah.
Well, Bob, I think we've sort of just yarned a bit today about the good and some good and some bad. Is there anything else you want to talk about with windfalls?
When you talk about bad, I mean, there's different bads. Sometimes you have a price correction where the prices go backwards a bit. I did an apartment block, 15 apartments where that happened, but all it meant is I made less profit.
Yep.
Like using current prices, instead of making $120,000 per apartment, I might make 60. But you still, like, there's a big buffer in your profit, so that's good. I've had a builder go broke twice, but I fought through there, replaced the builder. My profits took a big hit on both of those. But that's what happens. But when you got that buffer of a profit, it can help. And you have some easy ones.
And that's a good point. And when you've got the buffer of the profit, that is why there is that margin. That is why they want the margin. So it balances out anything that may happen.
Yeah, and remember that properties go up more than they go down.
Yes.
So over a period of time, your property is going to go up more while you're developing. And think about, let's say a project takes 2 years. Well, if the market can go up in that 2 years, how much better does your feasibility look 2 years later, the sale prices? Say the market went up 5% a year, that's 10%, by the time, in 2 years' time when you sell it. So you might have started off with an $800,000, when you bought the site, they were worth $800,000, but now they're worth $960,000. That's an extra $160,000 per townhouse on top of the profit that it already showed when you did the first feasibility.
Mm.
Now, yeah, sure, properties can peg back a bit, but they go up a lot more than they peg back. So more often than not, during that period of time, you're going to get price growth and your profit's going to be better at the end of the project than what you thought it was going to be at the beginning. And that profit is your buffer. So yeah, that's property development for you.
Easy wins build, what is it? Easy wins build confidence.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy, and hard lessons build character.
Well,
That's it there. Easy wins build confidence, hard lessons build character. That's the go.
Yeah, yeah. And you've got to have some character, some grit, some determination as well. But look, overall, it is what it is. It's a great way of making really good money when you do something really well. You're going to have some speed bumps, some detours, problems to solve along the way. Every so often you get a builder that you've made wrong decision on. You'll do something wrong, but it takes a lot to, you can correct the wrongs, and what will happen is your profit will just take a little bit of a hit. You made a mistake. Well, you could have made $10,000 more on each of those 2 duplexes, but you didn't because you didn't do that. Well, that's 20 you didn't make, but you still made, 400 anyway.
Not bad. Well, Bob, I think that's the end of episode 226. I think it's there's enough lessons in there, and I really hope that you got something out of that, or just enjoyed having a bit of a chitty chat about property development today. We'll catch you next week.
Bye.
All right. Bye.